Hello everyone, and welcome to Book My Therapy. Today we have on board Antony Alexander. He is a registered psychotherapist with qualifying status with CRPO in Ontario. He has over 10 years of work experience in India, Australia, and Canada. He specializes in providing therapy to couples in terms of relationship dynamics and inner child. He is also a certified life coach, executive coach, organizational development coach, and a good standing member of Certified Coaches Alliance Canada. He is also a member of Canadian Counseling and Psychotherapy Association. He speaks Hindi, Tamil, and English, and has a good understanding of Malayalam. Welcome to Book My Therapy, Antony.
Thank you so much, Neha. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh, you're very welcome. So I have a few questions for you. In your opinion, what is psychotherapy and how does it support mental well-being?
That's a good question. So, in my understanding, psychotherapy is knowing oneself. Basically, I call it as a journey of introspection, a journey of knowing who I am. In psychotherapy, people are not going to learn something new. Of course, they learn all the skills to handle certain situations or certain concerns of mental health. Beyond that, they understand who they are. And I, as a therapist, accompany them in their journey. So I'm just a temporary companion in their journey of healing.
So when someone comes and books a session with you, what does it look like? Could you walk us through a therapy session?
For sure. So initial sessions are usually different than the regular sessions. So in the initial session, usually it's a space and a time for both the therapist as well as the client to know each other well, especially for the client to understand if so and so is the right fit for me or not, and for the therapist to know if it fits into his or her scope of therapy practice or not. Once what Of course, it's a work in progress. It's not that one time I know, oh, he's a good fit, she's a good fit. No, it's not that. It's a work in progress. But beyond that, there is also this initial session, to know more about the presenting concerns and what brought them to therapy and so forth. So if I have someone, I usually ask them what brought you here and what are the concerns that you want to talk about and so forth. So a client would share, I have this concern, and this concern, and then we move forward. I ask basic questions about their background, their family, and their educational background, their work experience, and everything, in order to understand the context that they are providing me. And eventually, at the end of the first initial session, we usually have goals for them. Like they give me the goals, like I want to achieve this, this, and this. And we prefer one of the goals as the first goal, and then we head forward to our next session. That's the follow-up session with that particular goal.
Wonderful. It's so important, right, when it comes to goal setting, so you know what you're going to talk about and then devise techniques which will help the client. Well said. Thank
Exactly.
you.
Yeah.
Privacy. The next question is about privacy,
Mhm.
which is a big aspect in therapy. So, regarding client confidentiality and data protection, what is your opinion?
Okay, so confidentiality is the foundation of whole therapy, I would call it. The first code of ethic would be confidentiality in a therapy. And we build our trust, relationship, a therapeutic relationship, and everything upon that foundation. So usually it's kept well. And so there are three circumstances where the seal of confidentiality can be broken, kind of, or breached. Number one, if there is a harm to the client, or if there is a harm to someone through the client. Or number two, if the court asks for it, and we can give information, right? And even then, we usually ask the informed consent of the client. We do not give just like that. And number three, of course, we do talk about the client through a supervisor up until you do your independent practice, but we would not usually name the client. Rather, we would say, for example, Antony Alexander, I would say AA. So the supervisor may not know who the client is, but he or she might know the initials. So these are some circumstances where we speak about. Now, with regards to data protection, CRP expects it to be a two-tier. So in order to enter, for example, I have my laptop and I have everything secured. So in order to enter into my laptop, I have a password, and that's only to me. And then I have my files, the client files, and it would have its own password to enter in. And I would keep like every individual file will have another password. So everything will be confidentially kept. And we all have our insurance, liability insurance that would also include the data protection as well. Some of the insurances, it depends. So I would buy one. So it is the top priority of the therapist to keep every information of the client confidential.
Yeah. Thank you. That solves most question that even I had initially about, confidentiality, because that is the basis of trust, and that is then the basis of another session, right?
Yeah.
So thank you for elaborating on that. You immigrated from India, right? And as a therapist, what were some biggest challenges you faced when transitioning your practice to Canada?
Good. Well, so back home, I practiced at least 9 continuous years, India as well as Australia. But I did have clients from different parts of the world, from Indian culture as well as other cultures. But when I moved in here, one of the challenges, or the only challenge that I had for myself, was if the Canadian culture would accept me or not as a therapist, you know. But I love the plurality of Canada. I like the multiculturalism of Canada. As a therapist, it's not important to understand one culture. You should learn about multiple cultures, because every next person I come across is from a different culture altogether. So when I did my studies here in Canada, like my master's, second master's in counseling, I already have a master's in counseling and psychotherapy back home, and I did my second master's in clinical counseling here. We do have a subject called cross-cultural perspectives in counseling, where we understand the cultural sensitivity of the counseling setup and so forth. So that was one of my major challenges. The second one, which is minor, but still I'm learning. Life is an ongoing journey of learning, right? Is that the word and the context. Some of the words I use in an Indian context would mean differently, and when I come here, it could mean differently. So I'm also learning that, learning the right vocabulary, right, in the Canadian context, not in a general context. So these are the two challenges I had, and I'm still learning.
For someone who is in therapy, like I am in therapy, and for from across the screen on the other side, it looks like, oh, it must be so easy for therapists, to accommodate and in different cultures, and because we like expect therapists to quickly understand what's going on. And but no, somewhere I really appreciate you being open and vulnerable and being very honest in terms of sharing that, you know what will the other person also think about my context, where I come
Yeah,
from. Because somehow, somewhere, and I rather, like, I'm hesitant to admit that we think that, therapists should know everything, but no, that's not the case. They are human beings and just like us.
absolutely.
So thank you for sharing and being open and honest with me. Thank you.
Pleasure.
So the next question is about your experience in both universities in India and Canada, and how would you compare the two of them when it comes to your training or additional qualifications?
Well, so I uh, I don't know if I mentioned that or not. I have 4 master degrees. So the first one is Masters in Counseling and Psychotherapy from India. I also did a diploma in counseling and psychotherapy earlier, graduate diploma kind of. Uh, in India, when I started doing that, it was more practice oriented. So completely different. So if at all I had to compare that master's that I studied in counseling in India with the one I studied here, both are very good in its own sense. It has got its own uniqueness. There is nothing high, nothing low. Everything is the same. The difference would be there it was more practice oriented, especially the place I studied. So first hour we have a theory session, and the second hour would be a practical session. A third hour would be a theory session. Fourth hour would be a practice session. And the fifth hour of the day would be usually an extended practice session. But here, once a week, we have the skills lab, or well, or so to say, all throughout the 3 years, you have your skill. You have 2 semesters of skills lab. That's the difference, and more theoretical knowledge here. More theoretical knowledge. So I did my skills lab in the second year, so that I learned all the basics. Like I know the basics, but here certain things I learned, and then I started incorporating that. But there, right from the second month, we start practicing basic counseling skills. That would be the difference. But I also did my MBA from UK, and also did a master's in education, innovative education and teaching from France. Those are different things which are not applicable to this, but different uh, context and different standards of study, and everything is good. Everything is good. All 4 universities were great.
So, did you notice any difference when it comes to therapy being practiced in India versus Canada in terms of client expectations and also in terms of therapeutic approaches?
Good question, interesting question, which we have been reflecting. We have been thinking about it personally. Many people ask me the same question. Definitely, there is a difference. In India, therapists are considered as experts. Uh, it's not that true here in Canada. As I said in the beginning, companionship. Someone facilitates something for me, not because he or she knows, but because he or she is trained to do that. But back home, so and so is expected as expert, omnipotent, knowing everything, doing everything, can heal you just by swaying a wand, which is not possible. So I often tell clients right from the beginning, I had this mind set up that I am not the healer for you. I'm here to facilitate healing. I cannot heal you. That's what my stand right from the beginning of my practice, because I was taught by professors who were educated in the West, those who did their doctorates in the West, in North America, in Canada, and so forth. So they brought this to us in our mind. And when I did my coaching studies, it was the same. So I'm so glad and I'm privileged that I was able to enter into this understanding that therapy is facilitation, companionship, than teaching someone or instructing someone or leading someone towards something.
Okay. Wow, well said. So, for someone who is in India and is thinking of moving to Canada, what advice would you give them on both like professional and cultural changes?
Well, I've been talking about it recently with all the immigration regulations coming in Canada. When, if I like, it's a very subjective opinion. When I move to, if at all I'm moving to a different country, I would learn to accommodate to that particular culture than bringing my own culture and inserting it here. And there is where you know all these things. Like I'm moving to Canada, and Canada's got its own things, this, that, and so on. You read, you know everything. I'm here to come and get accommodated, and they are accommodating me. So I would bring the richness of my culture, and I can practice that within the 4 walls of my room, but not going and forcing it outside. But what I get from outside, I will try to get accommodated so that I bring in a place where I live and let others live in harmony and peace. So please bring your culture, practice well as much as you want within the 4 walls. And when you can go and share it with others, those who are open, but get accommodated, accommodate the cultural values that they have for us. And they are welcoming us in a new land. Learn the values of that land and contribute if they ask for. If they don't ask for, it's well and good. Please move forward. That's it.
Wow, what a fresh perspective. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because mainly because yes, what happens is sometimes when we migrate from India to Canada, we miss India, right? And somehow we maybe unconsciously, consciously, I'm not sure, we have that tendency to, do things which we were doing back then without realizing where we are. And yeah, so fresh
Yeah,
and very, yeah,
it's just a little example. Like when we were young, at home we behave differently. When you go to a school, you don't behave the same way as you behave at home, right? In the school, you have your own things,
yeah.
right? You have to follow certain discipline and so forth. You can't say, oh, my mom used to allow me to do this, so I'm going to be like this. No. So when you go to a university, you behave in the place it is. Or even when you go to your relative's home, back home, you don't behave the way you behave at your home. And we don't go and force them to, oh, this is how we eat, you have to eat this. We don't say that. Or the plurality of India, north and the south and the east and west, everybody is different. Every 200 300 kilometers you travel, it's a different world altogether. Like from Tamil Nadu, you move to Andhra, they have the highest spice level. You can't say, oh, no, I eat only like this. You should eat. No, we don't do that. We get accommodated and we move on. And that's what it is. When we move to a new country, we should get accommodated with them. Then, no, I do this when you have to follow this. No, it's multiculturalism, and that's the beauty of human beings.
Wonderful. I really like how you explained it. Thank you. So, in terms of like therapists who are back in India and want to reach where you are, where you have right now, what advice would you give to them?
Well, get trained well. In my understanding, psychotherapy or counseling is not a profession, in my understanding. Anthony, subjective perspective. It's not a profession where you can earn money. Of course, nothing is free here. It's a paid service, but it's a service. People come with lots of trust in us. So look at this profession as a service, a human service than anything else. In order to bring that service well, you need to get trained and thus you can help others. So heal yourself first, thus you can bring healing to someone else. If I am wounded, I will look at everything as wounded. So as Anthony, I'm different. As a therapist, I'm different. So we are not biased this way or that way. We play a middle ground, a neutral. So get healed so that you can facilitate healing to someone who desires healing.
So, how would anyone know the difference? Like you said, like Antony is different and therapist Antony is different. So, where do you exactly create that divide, and where do you like move back to like being the Antony that you are, or being the therapist that requires you to
Yeah.
be?
People, those who are in the therapeutic field, they would know what is transference and what is counter-transference. For example, if Neha comes and shares something to me regarding a relationship, this, and so on, and Anthony would have had his relationship in the past, and Anthony should not lead Neha towards something which Anthony had from his past. It's different. I'm bringing here, I can offer some insights what fits best for Neha in this context and that aligns to her goals, not what Anthony wants or what Anthony had experienced or not from what Anthony had heard from people, right? There is where we have something called here in Canada in our practice, we have safe and effective usage of self, SEUS we call, safe and effective usage of self. I have to go through certain sessions as a therapist trainee so that I use myself in a very safe and effective way to others. And there is where the divide comes. I'm no more Antony. The moment I enter in here, I'm a therapist and I have my neutral grounds. I will not influence my client in any way through my own likes and dislikes, but I provide them options and help them to choose what they need that aligns to their goals. If they are off the goals, I can gently bring them back. Hey, this is what the goal is about, but you are slightly going astray. Is it okay for you? We gently bring them back. But you also, no, you should not do that. Do this, do this. No, we don't direct. We provide them options to choose.
Well said. So, post-pandemic, there has been an increase in online therapy. Have you noticed any key difference between virtual sessions and in-person therapy?
To me, yes. The fact is, when I started practicing counseling, as I said, in 2013, when I started, we used to have people live. More than the verbal cues, the non-verbal cues are very important in a therapeutic session. For example, I would personally observe and notice the non-verbal cues than the verbal cues because people are used to a particular tone and tonality and so forth. Certain emotions has got certain tenor of voice. Certain emotions will be like this. But in a non-verbal cue, the whole body speaks. And there is a famous book called Body Never Lies. The body exposes or communicates a lot than our words would. So that is important. So when I was doing therapy in person, that helped me a lot in understanding the client. But in a virtual session, that is not. So what I started doing right from 2018, I started practicing therapy before even pandemic came, and I started doing therapy online in 2018 because I was doing coaching online. So I adopted counseling online as well. So I was in the South and I had clients all over from India and abroad in 2019, 2018, and 2019, and so on. So only one difference is this verbal, non-verbal cue. So what I started mastering is their tone and voice. I know their tone, I know their voice, I know their normal voice. And when certain emotions come, how they change, I observe. So something more that I observe is their whole face. That's the only thing I can have. Yeah, I started mastering that. I'm learning still. Yeah.
I like how adaptable you are, right? When it comes to even like moving to online therapy sessions or moving across countries. Well done.
Good. Thank you.
So, the next question is about um, ethical challenges, right? So, as a therapist, have you faced any of them when it comes to managing relationships, especially in tight-knit immigrant communities?
Well, at this moment, as of now, no. I always establish my professional boundary well. Mm, oh, because I practice person-centered therapy, uh, people might think I'm so friendly and open and so on. Of course, I am. My nature is that as well. I'm not wearing a mask for that, but my nature is that. That's why I adopted that, sorry, school of therapy. But uh, when it comes to professional boundary, I establish it very clearly. Especially when I moved to Canada, I had to make it a little harder because I'm learning something new here. And it's always good to uh, be harder in the beginning so that it is part of us than loosening the boundary and then regretting for what went wrong. So, yeah, I always keep up that professional boundary very well. So, I never had any ethical issues as of now. Yeah. Well, I thank God for that. So, I never had any of those.
So, the next question is about burnout and imposter syndrome. So, in today's social media driven world, issues such as burnout and imposter syndrome are widely discussed. So, how do you help clients manage these modern challenges?
Great question. Not only for the clients, it's also for the therapists. All of us are human beings. We all go through it, right? uh, uh, I, for burnout, let's take the first topic, the burnout. Burnout is when you involve yourself too much in something. It's just like you like biryani and you eat biryani all the time. Of course, you'll be tired, right? Just because I love something, just because something gives me something, I cannot keep doing and doing and doing. Body is just like a glass of like a glass. You can pour a certain amount of hot water in it, but if it is too hot, it breaks. It tends to break. So does our body break sometimes when it cannot handle too much, and there is where burnout comes. Sometimes these days, I think personally, and there is where it leads to the imposter syndrome, I think. We tend to live life for others than living life for our own selves, constantly matching up to the expectations of others. And slowly, the expectations of others convert into demands for my own self. Oh, I have to keep up. I have to do that. I have to do that. Oh, they like all these things. Especially fame these days, people get very famous in online. You shared about social media. Everybody wants to be a hero and heroine in life, and they want to post this and so. So once they go to a certain level, they constantly think that I have to match that level. They have kept a standard and they want to go to that standard all the time. And there is where they put too much of pressure on themselves and they get burnt out. And the imposter syndrome that comes because they continue to compare themselves with something else. Our comparison should be with not our comparison should not be with anybody else than our own selves. And when we compare ourselves, oh, I did that 5 years back. Now, I'm not able to do that now. That is not the comparison. I always tell people, growth in life need not to be a leap. It can be a small, an inch of step also is fine. It's still a growth. Sometimes we regress in our growth. That's perfectly all right. We are human beings. Some grace to us is important. So imposters, when we speak about imposter syndrome, I tell people not to compare oneself with anybody else. If at all you want to compare with yourself to gauge your growth, compare with your own self and give grace to yourself. An inch of movement is also a growth. We should not make it a big leap. Is a growth? No, not at all. Journey is very sweet. It's all about now than moving very fast, right? So the speed is not important for the success. It's all about the completion of the journey. So people forget that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well said. So that leads to another question about inner child. So, how does working with the inner child help clients resolve deeper emotional issues?
Good. So I do a lot of work on inner child. The reason is I never wanted to be a therapist. I went for an 8 days intensive inner healing the inner child program, and there I was made a therapist. My therapist asked, "Why don't you be a therapist?" I said, "No, I came for my therapy." He said, "No, you have gone through a lot. You know what it is." And he said, I think that you are a natural healer." He mentioned innocent word. I don't believe in that. I'm not a healer. I can facilitate healing though. So it really amused me when I started doing this 8 days of intensive. So it's an in-house program. It's not like 1 hour, 2 hours. I go there. I traveled 5, 6 hours to a different place. I was with another 100 people. And then we did the therapy together. It's a group session. 100 people together. We were doing that. I started understanding myself more than ever before. Then I also understood that whatever I learned from my childhood is what I'm reflecting now. Oh, this is why I behave this way. Oh, this is what is impacting me. Oh, this is what is triggering me. Then I understood, whatever I learned, and that's what psychoanalysis is. Whatever you learned in your childhood is what you reflect now. And then I started doing that with my clients. So, in my understanding, treating a symptom would not help someone to heal. Rather, treating the root would help them to heal. And there is where working with the inner child helps a lot in my therapy sessions. Both the ways, it's for them and it's for me as well.
Wonderful.
Good.
So, how do you incorporate mindfulness or holistic practices into your therapy sessions?
Good. I'm a person like a healing is not physical or not meant. Of course, it is. But I personally believe in a holistic healing that involves body, mind, and spirit. To some people, who do not believe in that spirit thing, but okay, I adapt it in a different way for them. But for me, it's all about now, just being now. Very often, I tell people my famous mantra to everyone: slow down, and slow down. I practice that a lot. It has helped me to understand where I am right now, where I ought to go, and where I came from. Otherwise, it's constant running and moving doesn't help me to go anywhere because it's just like, oh, some people are running, I'm also running. No. So there is where mindfulness comes. So my famous mantra for that, which I practice, I help my clients, is to slow down. Interestingly, yesterday I had a session. I was telling a particular client, she told me that one of my words that I told her 2.5 years back, she remembered, and she was wondering about it, but she never had an opportunity to ask me. She came for solutions all the time to me, asking some questions. But I asked her questions. She was thinking, oh, I'm asking Antony a question because I'm going through this in my life, but he's not answering, but he's questioning me back. Next week she came up with some other questions, but I asked her some other questions. Third week, she came and asked, Antony, I need to take a decision today and I want your insight on this. I said, can we put this off for a while? And then next week we'll talk about. She was really angry with me. And then the next week she came and asked about it. I told her, can we work on this first before even going there? She thought I'm not a good therapist, but she had to do that with me. And then days went on. After 3.5 months, she realized why I slowed down then. And she quoted that yesterday to me. Antony, whenever I came for a solution, I was in a hurry, buddy, taking a decision here and now. But you knew the bigger picture and you made me to slow down. Today, I'm so grateful to you that I did not take that decision and I put that off. I'm completely on a different world now of healing, Jesus. I said, that's good. I do that. Sometimes in life, we have to take decisions now, but I put it on hold to understand it better. And that helps me. Yeah.
Wow. Um, a last question for you. Looking ahead, what trends do you see shaping the future of psychotherapy, both globally and in Canada, especially when it comes to advancements in technology like artificial intelligence and digital therapy platforms?
Good. That's a good question because I have been reflecting on that. One of my clients a couple of months ago came to me, said she wanted to have a session with me, but unfortunately she couldn't have because my slots were already full, and her session was that Friday, and she was going through something that particular weekend, so she didn't know what to do. She could have emailed me, but she didn't email me though. So she immediately went to ChatGPT, sharing her story. This is what I'm feeling, this is what and Chat GPT gave her some random things, which she felt comfortable for that time. But still, it was nagging, she said, up until she discussed it with me during the therapy. But she openly told me, Antony, you were not available because I had the session on that particular Friday. The next day, this happened, and I wanted to talk to you, but unfortunately, you were not available. I didn't email you, but I went and chatted in the Chat GPT with an AI, and it was giving this solution and this solution and this solution. Interestingly, all the solutions that it gave are from theories in the in psychology, the field of psychology. For example, you have an anxiety, and it would give you a theory. You are going through this anxiety just because of this, this, and this. So do this, this, and this. It can help you to deal then and there, probably, but it may not give a long-standing healing, right? So there is where we then decoded it. She herself said, oh, Antony, this gives me more comfort than AI, she said. Of course, there is where uh, of, technology is really good in giving us prompt responses. But I'm of this kind. Anything prompt in life doesn't stay for a long time. There's where they say this slow and steady wins the race. Anything prompt, immediate, instant. We live in a very instant world. Instant coffee, 2 minutes noodles, and then anything, a quick wash, everything immediate, immediate, immediate. And if you notice, everything evaporates also immediately. The sooner it comes, the sooner it goes as well, right? But in a therapy, we take it slowly. And technology can never replace a human being just because only a human being can understand another human being. A technology can never understand a human being. Technology can ask questions. If you give a wrong answer, for example, how do you feel now? Are you okay after giving all these things, all these points? Yes, I feel okay. Then technology will not go further. But if Neha comes and tells me that, how are you feeling after saying all the 45 minutes of these stuff to you? Antony, I'm not still okay. Or you would say, I'm okay. But the other human being can pick up your voice or your nonverbal cue and say, I think still you're not convinced or not okay, I guess. There's where a human being is important in the field of therapy. I'm a fan of person-centered therapy, Rogerian school. I don't go by theories. In all my practice, I have never followed theories. I could be branded, oh, he doesn't follow theories. Yes, I follow theories as foundations, but I do not go and apply theories in the lives of human beings just because I do not believe in that. A theory can speak in a context, but a theory cannot box a person into something. Every action, every word, every thought from a human being has a context. And I'm not sure if theory would understand this particular thing in a particular context, because theories are written in a generalized view. Or, so to say, if I write a theory now, I would write based on the context that I live now. After 20 years, it would change. I'm not sure if this would fit in there or not, right? So a live person is very important, especially in the field of therapy, just because only a human being can understand somebody, another human being's heart or whatever it might be, and he or she can facilitate healing for the other person who is seeking healing. So technology never, it can give you theories, but it cannot comfort you. It cannot bring healing at all.
You're actually right. Just like your client, even I tried using Chat GPT and, AI in a different apps, and exactly the same experience. Like they give answers like this, like even before you can think, the answers are there, like in couple of seconds, right? But if you ask some really deep questions, like I was just messing around with those apps, and if you ask like really deep questions, they would say call 911, and I'm like, no.
Exactly. Exactly.
911 people who are answering those calls will start laughing on me if I call them for these silly questions. So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. The human context is very important, always. So, thank you for sharing
It's my
your
pleasure and privilege.
opinion on this. Anything else that I could have asked that I did not?
All is well, I guess. Everything is good. I hope I answered whatever you asked in a brief, precise, and concise way. To my best of ability, in my understanding, everything is subjective. I have not given any objective answers, like all the therapists would agree with it. No. Everything that I shared is based on my own experience, 10 years of experience. And life is an ongoing journey of learning. We are learner and teachers all throughout our life, right? Till we die. So we continue to learn, and I'm still learning. Certain concepts and theories that I believed 5 years back, I don't believe that anymore. Probably I hold on to certain values now. I'm not sure if I would hold on to that after a year or not, because we keep evolving, right? So it's very subjective. And today, with all these individualism, with lots of freedom and everywhere, everybody has got their own understanding. Now, the best part of a good therapist is he or she would frame his or her own way of conducting therapy and his or her own therapy based on whatever they learned from their experience. So people might call CBT, DBT, this, that, and so on. You can give a framework. Step one, do this. Step two, do this. Step three, I don't believe in that, because in a particular context, that doesn't help, right? And human beings evolve, they keep changing. Previous week, a client would come with a particular issue, and the next week, he or she would bring some other issue, right? And I cannot discard that saying, oh, today you have this issue. Now, as a therapist, I keep record of everything and understand the pattern behind it and what is triggering the client. Now, CBT, DBT can help particular symptoms, but understanding is beyond that, beyond therapy, right? So therapy, I really enjoy because I'm learning a lot. And I also feel privileged to share what I learned with another individual who seeks healing as I was seeking healing. So I'm bringing to him or her what I've gone through. And I'm not bringing anything from Pluto, Mars, and so on. I went through this and I feel this way. I do not know if it would fit in or not, but check. And then the next step would be I have all these experience of 9,500 clinical hours, all these many clients, and these many uh, sessions, conferences, and so forth. I have a kind of a database, and I'm supplying some information from that particular database, not from here and there. So we can always alter therapy. We can always alter therapy according to the needs of the client. So if you hesitate anytime, if at all I need to go to therapy, will that work or not? Give a try. It would work, provided you are open to learn something new.
Wow, actually, that was going to be my like next question. I know I said that the previous question was the last one, but because like this is so important, when at what point do you think a person should start seeking therapy?
Okay, so there's no like there is no point of time that we need to go to therapy. Anytime you do not have a clarity about your own self, it's time that we go and talk to someone. Most of the time, we think a lot. We run simulations. As I said, I have a database and I'm giving information. You, as an individual, you have your own database. That's your past experiences or that you learned from others. I have my own, right? Now, the database I mentioned is as a therapist. So usually what we do is we run simulations in our head. That's where overthinking comes. We think and we think and we think, and we don't get clarity. Either we are moved by a rationale or we are moved by our emotions. It depends upon the person, right? And so we don't land on a good decision. When not only for decisions, for anything for that matter, when you do not have clarity, go and talk to someone. And that is therapy, nothing else. You go and talk to someone. Most of the time, I have noticed in my therapy sessions with all these experiences, these years of experiences, the client comes and shares, he or she would understand what the problem was than me telling them. And when we learned therapy, the professor was saying 60 to 70% of therapy is done by listening only. I just patiently listen to them. And they themselves, by sharing, through the fact that they are sharing, they understand who they are. And there is where, as I said in the beginning, if you remember, asking some good questions. In coaching, they call it as powerful questioning. Asking right questions at the right time will help them to know who they are. So there's no point of time that we go to therapy if you do not have clarity on something. You feel that life is not moving well. Life is too slow. Life is too fast. I'm stuck. Whatever you feel, go and talk to someone. I'm very sure, I'm 120% sure you would get clarity, not because so and so would give you clarity, but because through the process of talking it out, you would know what is out.
Well said. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then how does one differentiate when is it a good time to talk to a friend and when is it a good time to seek therapy?
Good. That's a very good question. Now, many people, that's called peer counseling. Okay. What we do with our friends, we usually share. Sharing is different from therapy. You don't come to a therapy session, pay the therapist just because I'm going to share something. No, you can do that with your friend. And a friend would offer you some insights based on his or her own experience and based on his or her own experience with you. He or she would know you also. So there is this aspect of subjectivity in it. Now, what differs therapy from this sharing with friend is there is this person who is objective. There is where I said, as Antony, I have different opinion about the issue, but as a therapist, neutral. I'm in the middle ground. So what makes the difference is that neutrality. I do not know this person. The other person doesn't know me as well, but he helps me to understand things better because I do not feel emotionally entangled with you. I'm away from your emotions. And there is where that's what makes me professionally keeping the boundary well and moving away from all your emotions and to stand on my neutral point. If I am emotionally entangled with you, that's it. I'll not be able to offer good suggestions. I'll not be able to facilitate that healing for you because I'll be feeling with you than feeling for you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like the difference, like with you and for you. Wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderfully explained. Thank you so much. Well, that brings to the end of this wonderful discussion. And thank you so much for making the time and in this on this Sunday and giving us time. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure and privilege, and thank you so much for the opportunity provided, where I'm able to share something for people, those who are learning, those who are seeking some understanding about therapy, or so on. So we are all in the same boat. We are all learning. We are all walking together in this journey, and someone helps us, someone offers some suggestions, and so forth. So thank you so much for that opportunity. Also, all the very best in all your endeavors.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you like this episode, please hit the like and subscribe button and let me know in the comment section if you have any feedback or review for us.